Triodos Bank, and most people here will be familiar with the banking side of Triodos Bank. But we also have a corporate finance team, and that corporate finance team advises social enterprises and charities on how to raise capital. And what we wanted to do today as part of a double act was to talk you through a live kind of client that we're working with and where we're hoping to utilize this tax relief, and explain to you what the potential benefit is going to be for that charity. So my apologies that it is not a West Midlands based example. That would have obviously been ideal, but it is one that is on our own patch. Triodos Bank is based in Bristol, and this is a great community organisation which is based in Southville there. So they are a registered charity. They've been around for 23 years. They've been operating out of a grade 2 listed building, which they sort of are able to use. They have a 999-year lease from Bristol City Council, and so from that spot they're able to deliver a whole host of activities for the local community. That includes running a Monday club for older people, running after-school clubs, and also a nursery provision, which is very, very popular in the local community. And they approached us to say that they had plans to expand their nursery provision. And in order to do that, they wanted to acquire a site because their current building is too small to be able to do that from where they are now. And so the whole idea, for this is how can we help them acquire this property, refurbish it because it will need significant improvements and there will be significant refurbishment costs, and how can we help them, really deliver that in a way that's going to be the most cost effective for the charity. So they think, and again this is really still early stages of working with them, that their funding requirement is going to be about £900,000. So what I've done here is just to kind of run through. These are very rough numbers. The point isn't so much to focus on them, it's just to really talk about that funding gap, which so many charities face, which is you want to purchase a property, especially if there's loads of refurbishment costs, which in this case there will be because they'll need to expand the building. And really, how do you plug that funding gap? Which can be anywhere from kind of 30%, or in this instance, actually much greater than that, because there's a question mark as to whether the banks will lend just against the acquisition price of the property, or whether they will take into account the uplift of the value from the extension and the refurbishment. So the real challenge for our client is that they don't have a whole lot of reserves. I mean, that's kind of a common theme for a lot of the smaller charities, and in this case the reserve levels are just under £100,000. So the real challenge is how to plug that gap. They're thinking of doing it in a number of different ways. Some of the obvious ones in terms of capital grants, fundraising, sponsorship. But one of the things that they're really keen to do, because they are a community-based organization, is really, how can they make use of their support base and their supporters. And one of the things that we're exploring with them is really mobilizing that support base and seeing if we can find some investment from the local community. And that's where the social investment tax relief, we think, will help that local capital raising activity be more successful, because the social investment tax relief is kind of sweetener, if you like, on the investment proposition. So, I mean, again, I put numbers up there just because it's helpful to really have a sense of it. But these are really kind of back of the envelope, as we would say. But we will be putting together what Simon referred to as kind of a layered capital raise, because the cap that currently exists on SITR means that we're only going to be able to raise probably a maximum of about $290,000 under SITR. And so what we need to do is to help them raise the balance of the capital in the most cost-effective way possible. So clearly, we hope that there will be a senior secured piece, because that makes a lot of sense. We may also be able to find some social investment funders who would lend, on a second ranking security on that property, and then we'll be looking to plug the gap with a community bond issue. where the investors will benefit from the tax relief. This looks complicated, and I think that's one of the challenges that we have is we don't want to overcomplicate things. As I said, the number one aim for us is to enable our client to realize their ambition, which is to raise the capital that they need, and to do that at the lowest cost to them. So one of the challenges, about SITR is just finding ways to utilize this innovative tax relief, which can be great, but actually trying not to overcomplicate it. So, if there are ways to do this where we have an SITR bit and then another bit, that's going to be the ideal road to go down. We also don't know, exactly what rates of interest the banks will be expecting on their bit. I mean, you've got a good idea of what that might be. But in terms of the SITR component, because this is new, but one of the things that we're going to be working on is obviously trying to get that interest rate as competitive as possible, because the SITR relief is very, very attractive for the end investor. So ultimately what we are hoping is that this is going to enable them to access unsecured debt, which would have been much harder for them to access had the tax relief not been available. I think SITR is a great addition to different alternatives for raising investment. But I do think we have to be very clear, it's a tax relief. It's not a tap that you can turn on, it's not a new funding source, it's none of those things. It's just a tax relief that you can overlay onto a capital structure, and hopefully that will make it more attractive and you stand a better chance of raising the investment. And we think that will be the case. We think for the right organizations that have a very clear plan for how they want to grow, have a very clear need for investment capital, and have a plan for repaying that, we think social investment tax relief can be a way for them to access unsecured debt that might not have been available to them previously. I think the cap is currently a challenge. It's great for smaller organizations, but I think for smaller organizations, we need to figure out how you can do this in a more cost-effective way. Because if you're only looking to borrow a couple £100,000, we've got to kind of have this, standard suite of documents and really learn how the process is going to work. And I mean, that's the work that Big Society Capital and Neil are trying to do in order to bring the cost down. And the other sort of slight twist is that there have been some new rules that have been introduced from the FCA as of the beginning of this month, which also means that there's another level of compliance that has to be borne in mind when going out and approaching investors to invest in your organization. So there is lots to think about, but as I said, I think we're quite excited at the prospect of being able to utilize this, and really with the idea of making it as cost effective as possible for the charities and the social enterprises.